Welcome to the JRPG Canon, the ongoing project to document the first slice of a JRPG, talk about why it works and what's fun about these games that we like so much. If you'd like a better intro as to the purpose and idea behind the series, check out the first 2 episodes on Final Fantasy and Dragon Quest, where we define a lot of terms that we'll use in the rest of these episodes. I'm Sam Allman, and joining me in discussing Pokemon Red, Blue, and Green this week is Bernard.
Hi.
So Bernard, what was your first exposure to Pokemon?
So my first exposure to Pokemon was I was a little baby, and if I recall correctly, which I probably don't, I believe I saw the Pokemon cartoon and was like, oh my goodness, it's just like one of my American animations, except it's different, and there's Pokemon in this. And I like Pokemon now. And then because if I recall correctly, and you should fact check this while I'm talking, I believe the Pokemon anime came to America before the games. And so I saw the anime somehow, which I don't know how, because we barely had TV. I don't know. But I saw the anime. I loved it because I was a little kid, even though it sucks. The anime. The old episodes of the anime. And then I played Pokemon Red and Blue, and I loved them. And I've played all the Pokemon games, and I love most of them. I say all the Pokemon games, all the main series. No one has played every Pokemon game.
No. It looks like they launched concurrently.
I see.
Yeah. But I'm not finding definitive things, but they're at least both in 1998.
It aired in the United States in first-run syndication from September 8th to November 20th, 1998. And let's see when Pokemon Red and Blue came out, what time of year. I know it was that year, but oh god, I accidentally went to Bulbapedia instead of Wikipedia. There's nothing wrong with Bulbapedia, but it just wasn't what I was expecting. Oh gosh, the formatting on this is so difficult.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, September 28th, 1998. So I was right. It came out earlier. The anime came out earlier by some days, by 20 days.
Awesome. So my first experience with Pokemon was at a family reunion. Poke Fever was already in full swing, and Gold and Silver were coming out soon enough that one of my cousins was getting it for Christmas. So I know it was either had just come out or was coming out really soon. However, Pokemon is about making pacts with the devil, so I wasn't allowed to play it, and I hadn't even really heard about it at all yet. So at the family reunion, my cousins Tommy and CJ had Blue and Yellow, and they were obsessed with it. I had never heard of it before, so my cousin CJ let me start a game, but it's like, don't save or it'll overwrite my game.
Yeah.
But then CJ's sister told me that CJ loved the game so much that they were going to get him gold version for Christmas. And I was like, cool, he won't mind if I save over it. And I saved over his game. I distinctly remember that he was saved right before the champion. So he was like right about to beat it, and I had saved over it. He was furious, but I then said, it's okay, you're getting the new one for Christmas. So then everyone was furious at me, and I was not very popular amongst my extended family.
Terrible.
What was I supposed to do? I was 8. 8-year-olds don't know shit. It wasn't until Pokemon Diamond tore through my high school that I finally actually, no strings attached, played a Pokemon game. I had started a copy of Gold back with when I was spending a week with my friend David. He had a copy. He didn't mind if I saved over. So Feraligatr, or Totodile, was technically my first Pokemon, but my first Pokemon journey was through Pokemon Diamond. I loved the shit out of it, and I ended up putting 999 hours, 99 minutes, and 99 seconds on the clock because I was trying to get a living dex, which was insane before Heart Gold and Soul Silver came out. To get the Johto starters, you had to play Emerald no less than 3 times with choosing a different starter, because Professor Oak would give you a Johto starter after the Elite Four. So it was a lot. You had to have a complete in-box copy of Colosseum with a GBA link cable to be able to get Jirachi. You had a whole bunch of hoops that you had to jump through, but I did it. I had the living dex. I continued having it through White, but then when I moved from Waco to Austin, I lost the card forever.
No.
So
karma for saving over that game.
It's true. So eventually when Omega Ruby and Alpha Sapphire came out, I got a new living dex because it's really fucking easy in that game. So I have kept it up since then. I just don't have one for Pokemon Scarlet yet because I still haven't beaten a gym in Pokemon Scarlet. I don't know why. I just haven't dove into that one yet.
It's good.
Yeah, that's what
it has problems, but it's good.
Have any of the problems been addressed yet, or is it just Pokemon, so we're going to love it anyways?
I don't think the problems have been addressed.
Okay. I'll get around to it. It'll get its teeth in me. I played it a lot, like that first night or so. I've had a lot of things going on this year, and I couldn't just give up a week of my life to play the new Pokemon like I tend to.
Mm-hmm.
But let's listen to a super tiny, like, we joke about Square being potentially litigious with their music. Nintendo is notoriously litigious with their music. So we're going to play a tiny snippet of a jingle of a Pokemon tune, and then we'll talk about the history of the game. So before I get started, shout outs to Did You Know Gaming, who did a very recent episode on Pokemon, which a couple of my fun facts from here come directly from that video because I'm subscribed to them and you should be too. So, man, hasn't the history of Pokemon kind of been done like to death? Like everybody kind of fucking knows everything. So I'm going to be hitting a lot of things that everybody knows. But, when I write these history sections, I only go to Wikipedia and the game's own like fandom wiki to look stuff up. So I might have something wrong. I might have something left out. So please leave reviews or comments or Discord messages to say cool things that are left out, because I probably left out something cool, or to yell at me because engagement is engagement and I don't care. But yeah, this is going to be a very cursory glance of the history of Pokemon. So way back in 1990, Satoshi Tajiri pitched the concept of Pokemon to Nintendo, but Nintendo thought it would be too ambitious and really didn't see a widespread appeal in the game, which is hilarious.
They were right about it being too ambitious.
Absolutely. But Miyamoto thought it was an amazing idea, and he convinced the others on the greenlighting board to greenlight the project. The game sprouted from Tajiri's love of insect collecting and his desire to give kids the love of collecting creatures like that, despite how urbanized everything had become in Japan. Not everybody grew up on the countryside like he did, but he wanted kids to know how cool it is to collect creatures and make them fight. He thought that the Game Boy with its link cable would be perfect for the game, so that it could be used for trading and trading creatures. And Miyamoto loved the idea, and he came up with the idea of having different versions of each cart so the trading would be better. Tajiri then was like, oh, I could go even further and procedurally generate the routes based on a random seed, which is your trainer ID number that you get at the start of a game. That's why you have a trainer ID number, is it's held over from back when there were 65,000 versions of Pokemon Red and Blue.
Oh my gosh.
Miyamoto loved this idea, but he thought it would be really hard to market and make it clear to kids that your game is going to be different from your friend's game. So they decided to color code it and narrow it down to just 2 versions to have the color of the label, letting people know which version you have. Because in Japan, it's just the color of the label, not the color of the plastic, because they're not as cool as we were. So they scrapped the procedurally generated routes and world and everything, and just had the Pokemon available be different to make people want to trade more. Tajiri's dream team for the first game included a lot of people who are still around, still making the same games. So you have Junichi Masuda, who wrote the music, Ken Sugimori drew the Pokemon, and Shigeki Morimoto was lead programmer. The team was very, very small, so most people on the team wore several hats. Like Masuda also did programming and a lot of design, and now he's kind of the head of Pokemon. So everybody did a lot of things back in the day. The games were brought westward by Nintendo under the direction of Hiro Nakamura, but Red and Green were so incredibly fragile that a normal localization patch was not possible. So instead, they redesigned Red and Green from the ground up using the blue version, which was the 3rd special edition version of Pokemon in Japan that was a lot more stable. And if you've ever watched a Pokemon Gen 1 speedrun, you know it's not actually that stable. It's just that much more stable than Red and Green was.
Man, Green must have... Original Red and Green must have been rough.
Yeah. They're so rough that the fan translation of Green, which is what I played for the podcast today, is not actually a fan translation of Green. It's a de-evolution of Pokemon Blue back to match the original Green, because the original Green is barely holding together, and all of the fan translations that try to translate Green, like you can't like put in full sentences because the way the text boxes work, quote unquote, worked, didn't like it just didn't work. So you have a lot of abbreviations, a lot of stuff that doesn't make sense. They had to severely make it a worse game, and so the fan translation is like, nah, let's translate Blue back to Green instead of translating Green into English.
Wonderful.
Mm-hmm. So a final 4th version of Pokemon Yellow version, came out 2 years after Red and Green did, which is heavily based on the Pokemon anime, including Jesse and James, a Pikachu that follows you, and other changes to match the show. The localization of Pokemon took so long that in Europe and Australia, Pokemon Red, Blue, and Yellow were the last 3 games released for their regular Game Boy in those regions. They came out in September of 1999, which was a full 10 years after the Game Boy came out, and like only 2 years before the Game Boy Advance. So definitely very, very, very late in the original Game Boy life cycle. Pokemon Gen 1 has been remade twice, not counting Blue or Yellow as remakes of Red and Green. Once in the 3rd generation as Pokemon Fire Red and Leaf Green, and then again in the 8th generation as Pokemon Let's Go Pikachu and Let's Go Eevee. But this week we're going to take a look at where it all started with Red, Blue, and Green for the original Game Boy.
Didn't even talk about I guess you mentioned that it was about creating pacts with the devil. I was gonna say you didn't even mention the Satanic Panic.
I didn't. Like I said, it's very cursory glance. Yeah, the satanic panic about it was like insane. I remember it coming up like in church all the time that we couldn't let the youngins play with Pokemon because it was about making pacts with the devil. And now that we've played Shin Megami Tensei, I'm like, did someone accidentally give them the wrong game and they think that was Pokemon? Mm-hmm. Pokemon is definitely a Dragon Quest game and not a Shin Megami Tensei game. Anywho, so games start the moment you load them up, and Pokemon is really cool because it doesn't start the way that many Game Boy games do. Most Game Boy games, when you turn them on, there is filled to the brim a huge page of credits is the first thing that you see, and they try to squeeze it in, and then it'll take you to the title scene. But Pokemon doesn't do that. It just has the 3 copyrights for Nintendo, Game Freak, and Creatures Inc. And then it has a cutscene of Nidoran and Gengar fighting each other. And it looks as cool as the game feels, which is awesome. It's not super long. In future generations, this opening cutscene will grow to monumental sizes. But for here, it's just a short, like 10 seconds. But it's awesome. After the cutscene, the title screen slams in, showing your character and your box starter. But the Pokemon that's with you cycles through a bunch of different Pokemon, showing you all the cool monsters that you can find in the game. You hit new game, and then out comes the Pokemon Professor Oak to tell you about the world of Pokemon. He hits the most important parts. He says that people in the world are all about dogfighting these cuties, but also about being their friend and exploring the world, which is kind of the 3 pillars of the game, is fighting, forming bonds with your Pokemon, and exploring the world around you, which is kind of cool.
The games have sort of later games have sort of tried to explore the fact that we are capturing these wild creatures and forcing them to do blood sport. And how is that good? They've sort of tried to toy with that. It hasn't really worked.
No, not really at all. It's better to just have cognitive dissonance, and it's a thing that you do in Pokemon because that's the world of Pokemon.
Mm-hmm.
So he asks you your name, and you write dude, and asks your rival's name, and you write butts, and you embark on your journey. I don't think there's any other game that lets you name the antagonist, which is pretty cool.
Well, there's Pokemon Gold and Silver.
True, but I mean, any other game prior to this that let you do it?
I'm sure there must be.
Yeah, there probably is one, but I can't think of any. And I know it was the very first one that I played where you could do it, and I think that's pretty cool because in Japan, Red's canonical name is Satoshi, after Satoshi Tajiri, and Blue's canonical name is Shigeru, after Shigeru Miyamoto, because Tajiri modeled the main character after himself and modeled his rival and best friend after his rival and best friend and mentor, Shigeru Miyamoto, which is exactly what all of us fucking did. We definitely named Red after ourselves, and we named Blue after either a cuss word or our friend's name. And I think that's so cool that's what Tajiri did. Just he had the power of canon on his side. After you name yourself, you're thrust into the world with no direction. You just can go around investigating things, eventually making it downstairs, where if you talk to your mom, she says that Professor Oak, hey, we know that guy, lives next door and he's looking for us. So we go next door, and Blue's sister is there. She says that Blue is at Grandpa's lab. We remember from the intro that Blue is Oak's grandson, so now we know that it's Oak that has a lab. And there's only other one building in town to investigate, so you might as well go and check it out. When we get there, Oak is gone. Blue is there, but he's entirely unhelpful, so all we can do is explore around, which is like the point of the game. They have you doing your main verb, explore, twice in the first few seconds of gameplay. It's cool. I like it a lot. You keep exploring and eventually find a path that leads out of town that has a different grass texture than elsewhere. The moment you step into it, Oak shows up and he yells at you to not go into the grass. He says that Pokemon are there and we need one of our own to be able to fight back. So he takes us back to the lab and lets us choose a Pokemon to take with us. We can choose from 3 choices: the fire-type Charmander, the water-type Squirtle, and the grass-type Bulbasaur, which, for how unbalanced this game is, might as well be the difficulty choice of hard, normal, and easy, but we'll get there in a bit. Because I'm from the future and I've been on the playground trading secrets for most of my life, I know that to beat this game in time for recording, I'm going to need Bulbasaur. So you pick your Pokemon and the game offers to let you nickname it. This was always something that Tajiri wanted to be a main focus of the game, because he would name all the bugs in his collection. He would grow attached to them, and that was part of the joys of bug collecting. It was not just collecting a beetle, but connecting a beetle named Hachi or whatever. Every single person who chooses, no, I don't want to nickname my Pokemon, is an unfeeling monster who should probably be put on a list. Naming your Pokemon is important to the process. I named my Bulbasaur Hi-Oh-Hi because that's what Scarlet named her Bulbasaur Stuffy when she was a toddler. And then Blue picks a Charizard because he's a cheater. So we try to leave the lab and Blue challenges us to a fight, our tutorial fight, in fact. The game attempts to teach you that there are multiple kinds of moves in this game, some that do direct damage and some that are buffs and debuffs. But basically, every person I know doesn't actually learn this from this fight. They learn that Growl doesn't do anything, and Tackle makes the health bar get smaller. So Tackle is inherently better. And here we are in Gen 9, and everyone still does the same thing. The very first thing you do when you try to get better at Pokemon is relearn that buffs and debuffs aren't useless, because they definitely seem so. This first fight is basically RNG if you beat Blue or not, because he picks the one specifically designed to beat you, and if he uses his attacking moves every turn, he'll hit you harder and you'll die.
He does pick the one designed to beat you, but you don't have moves of the types yet, so he can't actually do anything super effective at you. But yeah, it is sort of random if you're going to win or not. If you know the secret and you check the PC in your room before going to the lab and take the potion out of the PC, you can have a potion for this fight. And yes, they are called potions because this is an RPG. The healing items are potions and ethers and elixirs, which is incredible.
Yes.
It's all it all takes place in alternate universe modern Japan, and collecting and fighting your pets, but the healing items are just JRPG ass items.
Yeah. If you manage to die to Blue, he does give you a hint. He says, I'm going to make my Pokemon fight other Pokemon so that they'll get stronger, which gives you a hint on how to win next time by grinding. Now that we have our Pokemon, we can continue north, not because anyone tells us to, but because there's shit else to do. We just are forced to explore and make our way forward, which is actually good game design. A few steps into the wild, into the tall grass, you'll probably get into your first wild Pokemon battle. You don't have any Pokeballs yet, so all you can do is kick the Pokemon's ass, and you do pretty easily. You learn that wild Pokemon are way easier than trained ones, so you don't have to worry about getting wrecked like Blue might have wrecked you earlier every few steps. Along the way, you pass ledges that you can't climb up, but you can jump down. So this makes your first trip through the route treacherous, but your return trip that you do in a little bit, not treacherous at all, which is basically how every route in every Pokemon game from here on works. Is getting through it your first time kind of sucks, but getting back through it the rest of the time doesn't. If you didn't beat Blue and level up during his fight, you'll probably level up as you make your way through Route 1, which shows the all-important number go up that we've learned to love since Dragon Quest. Once you arrive in town, the first building that you see says Poke on it, and it beckons you inside because you're playing a Pokemon game. This is the Pokemon Center, which is basically an inn for your Pokemon, and as we'll find out soon enough, is also a Dragon Quest castle, so it's your spawn point when you die. There's also a cable club, which is the Link Trading Center right next to it, which I had forgotten in Gen 1 is a giant, like bigger than the Pokemon Center section of the Pokemon Center. In later games, they tuck it upstairs or downstairs or wherever out of the way, because at that point we all knew trading Pokemon is cool, big, and important. But in this one, they kind of had to like hammer it home that you should be trading with your friends. So it takes up more real estate than the actual Pokemon Center does, which I thought was insane. The Cable Club, unfortunately, is down right now, but it's definitely something to come back to later. The next building you come across is marked, and right as you enter, the cashier calls you over. Professor Oak had purchased something, and it came in, and he asks if we can take it back to him. So now we have to trek backwards through the route using all of the ledges to jump down and travel quickly, and you can probably get through with 0 fights because there's only like 5 squares of grass you have to actually touch right outside of town. We take the parcel back to Oak, who gives us the Pokedex and tasks us with gathering info on all of the Pokemon in the world. He doesn't really tell us how to do it, but that's our quest, is to try and fill the Pokedex. We gotta catch them all, as it were. Blue says that he'll be better than us, and to do so, he'll get a map from his sister, who totally won't give one to us, but she totally does, because Blue is the only asshole in his family. Town map in hand, we head back to the town where we were before, and this time we see the second way that the game makes backtracking not suck. And it's the same one that Dragon Quest did. Once you level up, going through old content is a breeze. Getting to town again, you wipe the floor even more than you did before with all of the Pokemon that try to fight you. Once we get to town again, it has only one place to go if we explore long enough, which is northwards through Viridian Forest. But while trying to find where to go, all of the places that we can't get to yet are marked with things that make us like you pull a Zelda or a Metroid and store it in the back of our mind for later. There's bushes you can't cut down. There's gyms that are locked. There's items that we can't get to. There's water we can't cross. There's a lot of things to, especially in this one town right here. They basically hit all of the hits. Like, oh, there's come back to do a gym later. Come back to cut down bushes later. Come back when you can surf. There's going to be a lot to this world, even though so far the only thing you can do is go north.
Well, you can also go west. You can also go to the Elite Four. You can try to go to the Pokemon League, the big final area of the game. You can't actually go in. You get stopped by Blue and have an optional fight with him at this point. And it's hard at this point. There's a good chance you'll die. But you should go this way and just not go past the tall grass in this area. You should go to this area because the tall grass has Nidorans.
Yeah. Nidorans and
Nidorans are Mankeys.
Yeah. I always pick up a Mankey there. Especially because I normally play with Charmander, and Brock will kill me if I don't get something super effective, and Fight is the only thing super effective that you can get against it before the first gym if you don't pick water or grass.
Just a second. I am looking up if Mankey appears in that area or if you're insane. Okay, Route 22 connects Viridian City to Pokemon League Reception Gate. So Mankey is there in Pokemon Yellow.
Okay, so maybe... I mean, Pikachu also gets wrecked by Brock, so I'm probably just putting... I'm definitely thinking of Yellow. I didn't have a copy of Red. I had one physically in my... like I owned it. I got it out of the my English teacher was retiring, and she was like, here's all the contraband that nobody came back to get. There was a Game Boy Color in there that had Pokemon Red.
Holy shit.
I didn't want Pokemon Red for some stupid fucking reason. So I gave the game to a friend, and I kept the Game Boy Color. But
still pretty fucking good.
Yeah, I then played a lot of Magi Nation on the Game Boy Color because I am who I am. But I later got a copy of Yellow, and so my main time with the original Gen 1 is in Pokemon Yellow. I'm now going to check Fire Red and Leaf Green to see if it's there. Yeah, in Fire Red and Leaf Green, it's in 22 and 23. So the other times that I've played have been in Fire Red and Leaf Green, which is where I would have a Charmander getting my ass kicked and need a fighting type.
In Pokemon Yellow, they made a lot of changes in Pokemon Yellow to rebalance stuff and everything, and they did a few things, such as putting a Mankey there to make it possible to beat Brock if you chose Charmander.
Yes. Anywho, yeah. So I had forgotten that was here. I thought it was later because I didn't do it this time because I picked Bulbasaur to get through the portion faster. But if you do explore all the way there is where you get your second and actually the main quest of the game is you can't get through here unless you beat all of the gyms. So then you would go back to the gym in the town, and that one's closed. So then I'm going to go to the next town and keep fighting gyms. So it's important to go that way in the design of discovering what the fuck you're supposed to do in the game. Anywho, so you do eventually make it northward to Viridian Forest, where you get your first taste of random trainer battles. None of them are too hard. Half of them only have
not
metapods.
Random.
Not random like a random battle. I just meant non-cutscene story fights. Most of them
rando trainer battles.
Yeah. Most of them just have metapods and Caterpies and Weedles. And this is technically the balancing where they're super effective against Bulbasaur, but half the time they don't have any damaging bug type moves, so you don't even really notice. But you could...
Yeah, Gen 1 had this thing where bugs didn't really have any bug type moves that could do any damage, and also ghost types didn't really have any ghost type moves that could do any damage, and psychic type was supposed to be balanced by being weak against bugs and ghosts.
Yep.
But bugs and ghosts couldn't do shit.
Yep.
So that psychic gym is hard.
It's really hard. But if you have Bulbasaur, there's a slight more chance than if you have Charmander that you could die here, which is you'll get teleported back to your last Pokemon Center, losing some Pokédollars in the process. Same as Dragon Quest. Pokemon Gen 1 is just a Dragon Quest game. This dungeon also is the first time that we see the risk and reward system that Pokemon routes and dungeons do. You can go through the tall grass to get there faster, but you might have to fight Pokemon, or you can avoid the tall grass, but there will probably be trainers that there are to fight, or you can walk both to get a lot of experience. Once you do make your way through the dungeon, you come to the second city, which I think is Pewter City. I realized that it popping up to tell you where you were was a gold and silver thing and not actually here. So I didn't check the town map, so I think it's Peter City because of Brock. But
yeah, it's Peter City.
So you get to Peter City, and this one's gym you can actually get into this time. Since I picked Bulbasaur, I wiped the fucking floor with Brock and his one gym trainer and get the Boulder Badge, which completes the first core loop of the game. You explore to find where you can go, make your way through a route to get to the next city to update your spawn point. Probably go through a dungeon along the way. You fight wild and trained Pokemon, and you culminate the loop with a fight with the gym leader before doing it all over again. So yeah, Pokemon is good.
Pokemon is really good. The first game has an aspect to it that diminishes a bit in the second games in the series, Gold and Silver, and then really drops off, where it feels like the future games are Pokemon games. Their genre is Pokemon. Mm-hmm. This game, Red and Blue sort of feel like actual, real-ass, hardcore, old-school RPGs. Mm-hmm. They're difficult, and there is, just throughout the game, there's more of a sense of, and maybe this is partly because I played them when I was like 8 years old, mm-hmm. but there's more of a feeling of a darkness, a danger in mm-hmm. this world. I love Red and Blue.
Absolutely.
I love the later games as well, most of them.
Yeah, I had forgotten how good of a World 1-1 this first loop was for the concept of Pokemon. And I also forgot how much of it was optional. Mm-hmm. Like, if you don't talk to the old man who teaches you how to catch Pokemon, and you don't go into the shop to buy Pokeballs, you will get to Brock with no other Pokemon. And there have been so many times where a friend who's only a casual Pokemon player will be like, yeah, I was playing Pokemon, but I can't get past blah, blah, blah. Can you help me? And I'll go and I'll look, and they will have a single level 50 starter and no other Pokemon because they just didn't talk to the right guy to let them know that was even part of the game.
What's really confusing is those all those trainers you fight who have 2 or 3 Pokemon, because clearly they know how to catch a Pokemon, but they haven't decided to catch a full party of 6.
No. They also haven't decided to catch any with attacking moves, like the guy that only has Metapods and Kakunas.
Yes.
Though I will say, directly contrary to the joke I just made, if you get a wild Metapod or Kakuna, they only know Harden, but the ones from the trainers know their moves from Caterpie, which shows you that like trained Pokemon are more of a big deal than a wild one in a way, which is pretty cool.
Also, Caterpie rules and Butterfree rules, mm-hmm. which is what Caterpie eventually evolves into. And in Red and Blue, Butterfree's like the only way to do decent damage against Brock's Pokemon. Mm-hmm. Because Brock's Pokemon, they resist normal type moves, which is what pretty much everything has mm-hmm. at this point. And also resist fire type moves, which is what Charmander has. So if you picked Charmander, then you're basically going to need Butterfree at level 12, which is going to take a lot of grinding. But I think at level 12 is when it learns Confusion.
I think so.
And Confusion will do damage against Brock's Pokemon.
Yeah, and I made the joke several times, and it's common knowledge that having Bulbasaur gets you free gems, but Bulbasaur's first grass type move is Leech Seed and doesn't learn Razor Leaf until like level 12 or whatever. I think in Gen 3 it doesn't learn Leech Seed first, it learns Razor Leaf first, or Vine Whip or whatever. But yeah, beating Brock with Leech Seed was not very fun at all. I don't recommend it.
Yeah, Gen 1, it has problems. One of those problems is that, you have these attrition moves where it's like Onix uses Bind, and then you just take a tiny bit of damage and can't move for several turns. And it's like, that's just annoying.
Yeah. Yeah, in Gen 1, it learns Vine Whip at level 13, which is even higher than you'd have to go for Butterfree.
Yes. Do you know about the Leech Seed toxic bug in Red and Blue?
I do not.
So I stumbled upon this myself while playing it. The last time I played through the whole game, I happened upon this, and then I was like, what is happening? And I looked it up, and it turns out it's a thing. So the move Toxic, it poisons the enemy Pokemon, but it's a special type of poison where it doesn't do the same amount of damage each turn. Each turn it gets progressively more damaging. And then Leech Seed, which we haven't actually said what it does. Leech Seed does a tiny bit of damage each turn, and you get that damage back as health. It's a seed what leeches. If you inflict Toxic and Leech Seed on an enemy Pokemon, Leech Seed's damage will also increase.
Oh.
So you can wreck stuff with Toxic and Leech Seed.
Hell yeah. Which
it rules.
Venusaur can learn.
Mm-hmm.
So.
Because everything's half poison in Gen 1.
Yep. But yeah, we mentioned Butterfree at level 12. If you do catch Pokemon and you're trying out others, the bug types being the first ones you run into was definitely on purpose, because bug types evolve really fast. You can get a really powerful third level Pokemon at level 12, and Bulbasaur himself doesn't evolve until level 16 for his second level. So the game teaches you evolving your Pokemon makes them stronger real quick and easy right out of the gate, if you happen to catch Pokemon and one of these and use them, which is, it's still just so nuts to me how much of the Pokemon DNA is optional, which 100% would lead to us on the playground being like, oh no, dude, there's a Pikachu in Viridian Forest. You just have to keep grinding and then you'll eventually find it. And then you can use that to take on Misty or whatever. Like, all of this cool, different optional stuff is a bunch of fodder to trade secrets on the playground. Just like you trade Pokemon. And that's cool. And I don't know if they did that on purpose, or the dense opaqueness of this game was a happy accident to make it cool and spread like wildfire.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I usually go over the good and the bad and the interesting, but there's a lot of bad and there's a lot of good, but all of it, good or bad, is very interesting, because it's either something that they fix later, like bug types not having any damaging moves, or it's jankiness, or it's none of the math makes sense. None of the AI makes sense. They've overhauled all of the math of the game, I think 3 times, at least twice. And it's all the bad parts aren't bad anymore, and all of the good parts are better, and all of the specifically Gen 1 things about this game are very interesting. And I could sit here for days probably talking about how good and interesting everything is.
Yes. And I think that despite it having 2 remakes and everything, I think Pokemon Gen 1 is singularly interesting and fun and deserves to be played.
Mm-hmm. Like most series will have a time where it's like, oh, it gets good at this one, or they fix enough of the things to make it worthwhile. But they fixed everything and made it worthwhile in the worst gen, which is Gen 4. So you might as well just play the janky ones and play Gen 1, because why would you want to play Gen 4 on purpose?
Don't play those Gen 4 remakes on purpose.
That's for sure.
Oof.
But yeah.
By Gen 4 remakes, I mean the remakes of Gen 4, not the remakes in Gen 4, which would be Heart Gold and Soul Silver,
yes,
which are great.
Yeah.
Talking about games is confusing.
It really is. But yeah, Pokemon's good. I could talk for forever. We probably will talk about Pokemon for forever when we sell out and play a Pokemon game, one of the later ones that has a plot, and for the main podcast. But for now, I think we're going to call it here. These are supposed to be bite-sized episodes, and I don't want to talk for a bajillion hours about how good Pokemon Gen 1 is.
I feel like in this episode, we sort of did a bad job of talking as though, like, presenting this as though we're presenting it to someone who has no idea what it is. And that's because Pokemon is so ingrained in our brains.
Mm-hmm.
And also, too, it's fine because you know what Pokemon is.
Yeah.
Don't act like you don't.
Yeah, I tried to at least, like, oh, what would someone stumble along and do? But I didn't talk to all of the NPCs. I didn't have time for that. I wasn't going to actually stumble along and figure out how things go. I knew to go north. You just go north.
I did replay this section of the game, but I was playing it late at night, and I'm not convinced I was actually conscious for all of it, because I have played this game so much,
mm-hmm.
and it's so in my soul that I just went through it and I don't think my brain was on for all of it.
No, I played through, just like I had to play through Emerald 3 times to get all the Johto starters. I had to play through Fire Red and Leaf Green 3 times to get the legendary gerbils, because you get one of those roaming the Orange Isles after you beat Fire Red or Leaf Green. So I have also played this game a bajillion times. So they're good. If you think we did a bad enough job that we should do it over, let us know and we'll play Pokemon again. I'm not going to complain. But,
mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is where we're going to call it for the week. If you like what you heard today and you have suggestions for other games for us to play on the JRPG Canon, you can commission episodes over at www.rpgbook.club, where we'll play anything you tell us to in this format. Today's episode was commissioned by Eliza Tantivy. Most of these first chunk are going to be commissioned by Eliza. Shout outs to Eliza. They heard that my card broke down, so they bought like 100 episodes. So we have quite a few to get through. But if you do decide to commission an episode or just want to donate to keep our lights on, you'll get access to our Book Club no Kaseki episodes a month before everyone else, and you'll be able to vote on polls that determine what we play on the main podcast. if you donate $5 or more a month, you get your name shouted out just like this. Shout outs to Flores, to Kaldron, Freddie Rodriguez, Bernie L. Taylor, AA Ron 524, Anthony Lerma, Vim K, Jfro Prime, and Doho. And then if you like us a whole lot and you donate $20 or more a month, we will read your name and a 1-sentence plug of your choosing. First up is Eliza, who wants you to check out NaNoReno, NaNoReno.org, which is a visual novel game jam to create a visual novel over the course of March. As of recording, it's March 3rd, so you're a little behind, but still plenty of time to go and check it out. And just check out RenPy in general, because it's real easy to make a game in RenPy. Asterisks on the easy, because Bernard's been doing one for a very long time and it's not actually easy, but it's comparatively
as
easy.
far as creating games goes.
Yes,
pretty easy.
Our other luminary, damn it, I was trying to not say it because I forgot to say it for the first two. Our other person who donated $20 a month is Carr, who's a dentist. So his plug is not for a URL, but for your own mouth. He says to brush your teeth 2 times a day, most importantly, the time right before bed. For the JRPG Canon, I have been Sam Allman.
I'm David Bernard Houck. I am yawning. I'm David Bernard Houck. It's past my bedtime.
Go play some games.